So we're going to try a different angle tonight. I am tired of the other arrangement, so hopefully this works. I'm going to read for you The Sea Fit by Algernon Blackwood, and then we'll go from there. I want to do as many stories as I can tonight. I haven't narrated in a few days. I've been doing like Pinterest and thumbnails, and it's like, enough. The marketing hyena quits. The Sea Fit by Algernon Blackwood. The sea that night sang rather than chanted. All along the far-running shore, a rising tide dropped thick foam, and the waves, white-crested, came steadily, in which the swing of a deliberate purpose. Overhead in a cloudless sky, that ancient enchantress, the full moon, watched their dance across the sheeted sands, guiding them carefully while she drew them up. For through the moonlight, through that roar of surf, there penetrated a singular note of earnestness and meaning, almost as though these common processes of nature were instinct with the flesh of an unusual activity that sought audaciously to cross the borderland into some subtle degree of conscious life. A gauze of light vapor clung upon the surface of the sea, far out, a transparent carpet through which the rollers drove shorewards in a moving pattern. In the low-roofed bungalow among the sand dunes, the three men sat. Foregathered for Easter, they spent the day fishing and sailing, and at night told yarns of the days when life was younger. It was fortunate that they were three and later four, because in the mouths of several witnesses an extraordinary thing shall be established, when they agree. And although whiskey stood upon the rough table made of planks nailed to barrels, it is childish to pretend that a few drinks invalidate evidence. For alcohol up to a certain point intensifies the consciousness, focuses the intellectual powers, sharpens observation, and two healthy men, certainly three, must have imbibed an absurd amount before they all see or admit to see the same things. The other bungalows still awaited their summer occupants. Only the lonely tufted sand dunes watched the sea, shaking their hair of coarse white grass to the winds. The men had the whole spit to themselves, with the wind, the spray, the flying gusts of sand, and that great Easter full moon. There was Major Reese of the Gunners and his half-brother, Dr. Malcolm Reese, and Captain Erickson, their host, all men whom the kaleidoscope of life had jostled together a decade ago in many adventures, then flung for years apart about the globe. There was also Erickson's body servant, Sinbad, sailor of big seas, and a man who had shared on many a ship all that lust of strange adventure that distinguished his great blonde-haired owner, an ideal servant and dog faithful, divining his master's moods almost before they were born. On the present occasion, besides crew of the fishing smack, he was cook, valet, and steward of the bungalow smoking room as well. Big Erickson, Norwegian by extraction, student by adoption, wanderer by blood, a Viking reincarnated if ever there was one, belonged to that type of primitive man in whom burns an inborn love and passion for the sea that amounts to positive worship, devouring tide, a lust and fever in the soul. All genuine votaries of the old sea gods have it, he used to say, by way of explaining his carelessness of worldly ambitions. We're never at our best away from salt water, never quite right. I've got it banging the heart myself. I do a bit before the mast sooner than make a million on shore. Simply can't help it, you see, and never could. It's our gods calling us to worship. And he had never tried to help it, which explains why he owned nothing in the world on land except this tumble-down, one-story bungalow, more like a ship's captain than anything else, to which he sometimes asked his bravest and most faithful friends, and a store of curious reading gathered in long, becalmed days at the ends of the world. Heart and mind, that is, carried a queer cargo. I'm sorry if you poor devils are uncomfortable in her. You must ask Sinbad for anything you want, and don't see, remember, as though Sinbad could have supplied comforts that were miles away, or converted a draughty wreck into a snug, taut, brand new vessel. Neither of the Reeses had cause for grumbling on the score of comfort, however, for they knew the keen joys of roughing it, and both weather and sport besides that had been glorious. It was on another score this particular evening that they found cause for uneasiness, if not for actual grumbling. Erickson had one of his queer sea fits on. Doctor was responsible for the term, and was in the thick of it, plunging like a straining boat at anchor. talking in a way that made them both feel vaguely uncomfortable and distressed. Neither of them knew exactly, perhaps, why he would have felt this growing malaise, and each was secretly vexed with the other for confirming his own unholy instinct. That something uncommon was astir. The loneliness of the sandpit and that melancholy singing of the sea before their very door may have had something to do with it, seeing that both were landsmen, where imagination is ever lord of the lonely places and adventurous men remain children to the last. But, whatever it was, it affected both men in different fashion. Malcolm Rees, the doctor, had not thought it necessary to mention to his brother that Sinbad had tugged his sleeve on entering and whispered in his ear, significantly, "Full moon, sir, please, and he's better without too much. These high spring tides get him all caught off his feet sometimes, clean sea crazy." And the man had contrived to let the doctor see the hilt of a small pistol he carried in his hip pocket. For Erikson had got upon his old subject, that the gods were not dead but merely withdrawn, and that even a single true worshipper was enough to draw them down again, into touch with the world and into the sphere of humanity, even into the active and invisible manifestation. He spoke of queer things he had seen in queerer places. He was serious, vehement, voluble, and the others had let it pour out unchecked, hoping therefore for its speedier exhaustion. They puffed their pipes in comparative silence, nodding from time to time, shrugging their shoulders, the soldier mystified and bewildered, the doctor alert and keenly watchful. And I liked the old idea he had been saying, speaking of these departed pagan deities, that sacrifice and ritual feed their great beings, and that death is only the final sacrifice by which the worshipper becomes absorbed into them. The devout worshipper, and there was a singular drive of power behind the words, should go to his death singing, as to a wedding, the wedding of his soul with the particular deity he has loved and served all his life. He swept his tow-colored beard, that's why you like this story. He swept his tow-colored beard with one hand, turning his shaggy head towards the window where the moonlight lay upon the procession of shaking winds. It's playing the whole game, I think. Man fashion, I remember. Once years ago, down there off the coast by Yucatan. And then, before they could interfere, he told an extraordinary tale, something he had seen years ago, but told it with such a horrid earnestness of conviction. For it was dreadful, though fine, this adventure, that his listeners shifted in their wicker chairs, struck matches uneasily, pulled out their long glasses, and sometimes exchanged that attempted a smile, yet did not quite achieve it. They struck matches. I like to add little effects here and there. His listeners shifted in their wicker chairs, struck matches unnecessarily, pulled out their long glasses, and exchanged glances that attempted a smile, yet did not quite achieve it. For the tale had to do with sacrifice of human life, and a rather haunting pagan ceremonial of the sea. And at its close, the room had changed in some indefinable manner. Was not exactly as it had been before, perhaps, as though the savage earnestness of the language had introduced some new element that made it less cozy, less cheerful, even less warm. A secret lust in the man's heart, born of the sea, and of his intense admiration of the pagan gods, called a light into his eyes, not altogether pleasant. Though they were great powers, at any rate, those ancient fellows. Erikson went on, refilling his huge pipe bowl. Too great to disappear altogether. Though today they may walk the earth in another manner, I swear they're still going it, especially he paused, he hesitated for a mere second. The old water powers, the sea gods. Terrific beggars, every one of them. Still, move the tides and raise the winds, eh? From the doctor. Erikson spoke again after a moment's silence with impressive dignity. And I like, too, the way they manage to keep their names before us. He went on with a curious eagerness that did not escape the doctor's observation. Well, it clearly puzzled the soldier. There's old Hugh, the druid god of justice, still alive in hue and cry. There's Typhon, hammering his way against us in the typhoon. There's the mighty Hurricane, serpent god of the winds. Oh, I like that one. You know, shouting to us in hurricane and Oregon, and there's Venus still at it as hard as ever, interrupted the major facetiously, though his brother did not laugh because of their host's almost sacred earnestness of manner and uncanny grimness of face. Exactly how he managed to introduce that element of gravity of conviction into such talk neither of his listeners quite understood, for in discussing the affair later they were unable to pitch upon any definite detail that betrayed it. Yet, there it was, alive and haunting, even distressingly so. All day he'd been silent and morose, but since dusk, with the turn of the tide, in fact, These queer sentences, half mystical, half unintelligible, had begun to pour from him, till now that cabin-like room among the sand dunes fairly vibrated with the man's emotion. And at last Major Reese, with blundering good intention, tried to shift the key from this portentous subject of sacrifice to something that might eventually lead towards comedy and laughter, and so relieve this growing pressure of melancholy and incredible things. The Viking fellow had just spoken of the possibility of the old gods manifesting themselves visibly, audibly, physically, and so the Major caught him up and made light mention of spiritualism and the so-called materialization seances, where physical bodies were alleged to be built up out of the emanations of the medium and the sitters. This crude aspect of the supernatural was the only possible link the soldier's mind could manage. He caught his brother's eye too late, it seems, for Malcolm Reese realized by this time that something untoward was afoot, and no longer needed the memory of Sinbad's warning to keep him sharply on the lookout. It was not the first time he had seen Ericsson caught by the sea, but he had never known him quite so bad, nor seen his face so flushed and white alternately, nor his eyes so oddly shining. So that Major Reese's well-intentioned illusion only brought wind to fire. The man of the sea, once Viking, roared with a rush of boisterous laughter at the comic suggestion, then dropped his voice to a sudden hard whisper, awfully earnest, awfully intense, and one must have started at the abrupt change and the life and death manner of the big man. His listeners undeniably both did. "Bunkum," he shouted, "bunkum and be damned to it all. There's only one real materialization of these immense outer beings possible. That's when the great embodied emotions, which are their sphere of action," his words became wildly incoherent, painfully struggling to get out, derived, you see, from their honest worshippers, the world over constituting their bodies, in fact, come down into matter and get condensed, crystallized into form, to claim that final sacrifice I spoke about just now, and to which any man might feel himself proud and honored to be summoned. No dying in bed or fading out from old age, but to plunge full-bodied and alive into the great body of the god who is deemed to descend and fetch you. The actual speech may have been even more rambling and incoherent than that. It came out in a torrent at white heat. Dr. Reese kicked his brother beneath the table just in time. The soldier looked thoroughly uncomfortable and amazed, utterly at a loss to know how he'd produced the storm. It rather frightened him. "I know it's because I've seen it," went on the seaman, his mind and speech slightly more under control. "Seen the ceremonies that brought these whopping old nature gods down into form. Seen them carry off a worshipper into themselves. Seen that worshipper, too, go off singing and happy to his death, proud and honored to be chosen." "Have you really, by George?" the Major exclaimed. "You tell us a queer thing, Ericsson," and it was then for the 5th time that Sinbad cautiously opened the door, peeped in and silently withdrew after giving a swift, comprehensive glance around the room. The night outside was windless and serene. Only the growing thunder of the tide near the full woke muffled echoes across the sand dunes. Rites and ceremonies, continued the other, his voice booming with a singular enthusiasm but ignoring the interruption, are simply means of losing oneself by temporary ecstasy in the god of one's choice, the god one has worshipped all one's life, of being partially absorbed in his being, and sacrifice complete the process. "A death, you said?" asked Malcolm Reese, watching him keenly. "Or voluntary," was the reply, that came flashlight. "The devotee becomes wedded to his deity, goes banging to him, you see, by fire or water or air, as by a drop from a height, according to the nature of that particular god. At one meant, of course, a man's death, fine, you know." The man's inner soul was on fire now. He was talking at a fearful pace, his eyes alight. His voice turned somehow into a kind of sing-song that chimed well, singularly well, with the booming of waves outside, and from time to time he turned to the window to stare out at the sea and the moon-blanched sands, and then a look of triumph would come into his face, that giant face framed by slow-moving wreaths of pipe smoke. Sinbad entered for the 6th time without any obvious purpose, busied himself unnecessarily with the glasses, and went out again, lingeringly. In the room he kept his eye hard upon his master. This time he contrived to push a chair and a heap of netting between him and the window. No one but Dr. Reese observed the maneuver, and he took the hint. "The portholes fit badly, Ericsson," he laughed, "and with a touch of authority there's a 5-knot breeze coming through the cracks, worse than an old wreck," and he moved up to secure the fastening better. "The room is confoundedly cold," Major Reese put in. "Has been for the last half hour, too. The soldier looked what he could, cold, distressed, creepy, but there's no wind really, he added. Captain Erickson turned his great bearded visage from one to the other before he answered. There was a gleam of sudden suspicion in his blue eyes. The baker's got that back door open again. If he sent for anyone, as he did once before, I swear I'll drown him in fresh water for his impudence. Or perhaps can it be already that he expects? He left the sentence incomplete and rang the bell, laughing with a boisterousness that was clearly feigned. Sinbad, what's this cold in the place? You've got the back door open? Not expecting anyone, are you? Everything's shut tight, Captain. There's a bit of a breeze coming up from the east, and the tide's drawing up at a raging pace. We can all hear that. But are you expecting anyone, I asked? Repeated his master, suspiciously yet still laughing. One might have said he was trying to give the idea that the man had some land flirtation on hand. They looked one another square in the eye for a moment, these two. It was that straight stare of equals who understood each other well. Someone might be on the way, as it were, Captain. Couldn't say for certain. The voice almost trembled. By a sharp twist of the eye, Sinbad managed to shoot a lightning and significant look at the doctor. But this freezing damp cold in the place. Are you sure no one's come by the back ways? Insisted the master. He whispered it. Across the dunes, for instance? His voice conveyed awe and delight. Both kept hard under. It's all over the house, Captain, already, replied the man, and moved across to put more sea logs on the blazing fire. Even the soldier noticed that their language was tight with allusion of another kind. To relieve the growing tension and uneasiness in his own mind, he took up the word house and made fun of it. As though it were a mansion, he observed, with a forced chuckle instead of a mere seashell. Then, looking about him, he added, but, all the same, there's a kind of fog getting in the room from the sea, I suppose. Coming up with the tide or something, eh? The air had certainly in the last 20 minutes turned thickish. It was not all tobacco smoke, and there was a moisture that began to precipitate on the objects in tiny fine globules, the cold too, fairly bit. I'll take a look around, said Sinbad significantly, and went out. Only the doctor perhaps noticed that the man shook and was white down to the gills. He said nothing but moved his chair nearer to the window and to his host. It was really a little bit beyond comprehension how the wild words of the old sea dog, in the full sway of his sea fit, had altered the very air of the room, as well as the personal equations of its occupants for an extraordinary atmosphere of enthusiasm that was almost splendor pulsed about him, yet vilely close to something that suggested terror. Through the armor of everyday common sense that normally clothed the minds of these other two had crept the faint wedges of a mood that made them vaguely wonder whether the incredible could perhaps someday, by way of bewildering expectations, actually come to pass. The moods of their deepest life, that is to say, were already affected. An inner and thoroughly unwelcome change was in progress, and such psychic disturbances once started are hard to arrest. In this case, it was well on the way before either the army or medicine had been willing to recognize the fact. There was something coming from the sand dunes or the sea, and it was invited, welcomed at any rate by Erickson. His deep volcanic enthusiasm and belief provided the channel. In lesser degree, too, they were caught in it. Moreover, it was terrific, irresistible. And it was at this point, at the comparing of notes afterwards established, that Father Norden came in. Norden, the big man's nephew, having bicycled over from some point beyond Corfe Castle, and raced along the hard Statland sand in the moonlight, and then hallooed till a boat had ferried him across the narrow channel of Poole Harbor. Sinbad simply brought him in without any preliminary question or announcement. He could not resist the splendid night and the spring air, explained Norden. He felt sure his uncle could find a hammock for him somewhere aft, as he put it. He did not add that Sinbad had telegraphed for him just before sundown from the Coast Guard hut. Dr. Reese already knew him, but he was introduced to the Major. Norden was a member of the Society of Jesus, an ardent, not clever, an unselfish soul. Erickson greeted him with obviously mixed feelings, and an extraordinary sentence. It doesn't really matter, he exclaimed after a few commonplaces of talk. For all religions are the same if you go deep enough. All teach sacrifice, and without exception, all seek final union by absorption into their deity. And then, under his breath, turning sideways to peer out of the window, he added a swift rush of half-smothered words that only Dr. Reese caught. The army, the church, the medical profession, and labor, if they would only all come. What a fine result, what a grand offering. Alone I seemed so unworthy, insignificant. But meanwhile, young Norden was speaking before anyone could stop him. although the major did make one or two blundering attempts. For once the Jesuit's tact was at fault. He evidently hoped to introduce a new mood, to shift the current already established by the single force of his own personality. And he was not quite man enough to carry it off. It was an error of judgment on his part, for the forces he had established in the room were too heavy to lift an altar, their impetuous being already acquired. He did his best anyhow. He began moving with the current. It was not the first sea fit he had combated in this extraordinary personality, then found too late that he was carried along with it himself, like the rest of them. Odd, but couldn't find the bungalow at first, he laughed, somewhat hardly. It's got a big sea fog all to itself that hides it. I thought perhaps my pagan uncle. The doctor interrupted him hastily with great energy. The fog does lie caught in these sand hollows that steam in a cup, he put in, but the other, intent on his own procedure, missed the cue. Thought it was smoke at first, and that you were up to some heathen ceremony or other, laughing in Erickson's face, sacrificing to the full moon of the sea, or the spirits of the desolate places that haunt sand dunes, eh? No one spoke for a second, but Erickson's face turned quite radiant. My uncle's such a pagan, continued the priest, that, as I flew along those deserted sands from Studland, I almost expected to hear old Triton blow his weathered horn, or see fair Thetis's tinsel slippered feet. Erickson, suppressing violent gestures, highly excited, face happy as a boy's, was combining his great yellow beard with both hands, and the other two men had begun to speak at once, intent on stopping the flow of unwise allusion. Norden, swallowing a mouthful of cold soda water, had put the glass down, sputtering over its bubbles when the sound was first heard at the window. And in the back room, the manservant ran, calling something aloud that sounded like, "It's coming, God save us, it's coming in," though the major swears some name was mentioned that he afterwards forgot. Glaucus, Proteus, Pontus, or some such word. The sound itself, however, was plain enough, a kind of imperious tapping at the window panes, as of a multitude of objects. Blown sand it might have been, or heavy spray, or as Norden suggested later, a great water-soaked branch of giant seaweed. Everyone started up, but Erickson was first upon his feet and had the window wide open in a twinkling. His voice roared forth over these moonlit sand dunes and out towards the line of heavy surf 10 yards below. All along the shore of the Aegean he bellowed with a kind of hoarse triumph that shook the heart. That ancient cry once rang, but it was a lie, a thumping and audacious lie, and he is not the only one. Another still lives, and by Poseidon he comes. He knows his own, and his own know him, and he shall go to meet him. That reference to the Aegean cry, it was so wonderful. Everyone, of course, except the soldier, seized the allusion. It was a comprehensive yet subtle way of suggesting the idea. And meanwhile, all spoke at once, shouted rather, for the invasion was somewhat monstrous. Damn it, that's a bit too much. Something's caught my throat, the major, like a man drowning, fought with the furniture in his amazement and dismay. Fighting was his first instinct, of course. Hurt so infernally, takes the breath, he cried, by way of explaining the extraordinary violent impetus that moved him. Impetus that moved him? Yet half ashamed of himself for seeing nothing he could strike. But Malcolm struggled to get in between his host and the open window, saying in a tense voice something like, "Don't let him get out, don't let him get out." Well, the shouts of warning from Sinbad and the little cramped back offices added to the general confusion. Only Father Norden stood quiet, watching with a kind of admiring wonder the expression of magnificence that had flamed into the visage of Erickson. "Hark, you fools, hark!" boomed the Viking figure, standing erect and splendid. And through that open window along the far-drawn line of shore, from Canford Cliffs to the chalk bluffs of Studland Bay, there certainly ran a sound that was no common roar of surf. It was articulate, a message from the sea, an announcement, a thunderous warning of approach. No mere surf breaking on sand could have come past so deep and multitudinous a voice of dreadful roaring, far out over the entering tide, yet at the same time close in among the entire sweep ashore, shaking all the ocean, both depth and surface, with its deep vibrations. Into the bungalow chamber came the sea. Out of the night, from the moonlit spaces, where it had been steadily accumulating into that little cabined room, so full of humanity and tobacco smoke, came invisibly the power of the sea, invisible, yes, but mighty, pressed forward by the huge draw of the moon, soft coated with brine and moisture, the great sea, and with it into the minds of those three other men leaped instantaneously, not to be denied, overwhelming suggestions of water power, the tear and strain of 1,000-mile currents, the irresistible pull and rush of tides, The suction of giant whirlpools, more than mass and awful impetuous, of whole-driven oceans. The air churned salt and briny, and a welter of seaweed clamped their very skins. Glaucus, I come to thee, great god of the deep waterways, father and master. Erickson cried aloud in a voice that most marvelously conveyed supreme joy. The little bungalow trembled as from a blow at the foundations, and the same second the big man was through the window, running down the moonlit sands towards the foam. God in heaven, did you all see that? Shouted Major Reese, for the manner in which the great body slipped through the tiny window frame was incredible. And then, first tottering with a sudden weakness, he recovered himself and rushed round by the door, followed by his brother. Sinbad, invisible but not inaudible, was calling aloud from the passage at the back. Father Norden, slimmer than the others, well controlled too, was through the little window before either of them reached the fringe of beach beyond the sand dunes. They joined forces halfway down to the water's edge. The figure of Erickson, towering in the moonlight, flew before them, coasting rapidly along the wave line. No one of them said a word. They tore along side by side, Norden a trifle in advance. In front of them, head turned seawards, bounded Erickson in great flying leaps, singing as he ran, impossible to overtake. Then what they witnessed, all three witnessed. The weird grandeur of it in the moonshine was too splendid to allow. The smaller emotions of personal alarm, it seems. At any rate, the divergence of opinion afterwards was unaccountably insignificant, for all of a sudden the heavy roaring sound far out at sea came close in with a swift plunge of speed, followed simultaneously, accompanied rather by a dark line that was no mere wave moving enormously up and across between the sky, and it swept close into shore. The moonlight caught it for a second as it passed in a cliff of her bright silver, and Erickson slowed down, bowed his great head and shoulders, spread his arms out, and what? For no one of those amazed witnesses could swear exactly what then came to pass. Upon this impossibility of telling it in language, they all three agreed. Only those eyeless dunes of sand that watch, only the white and silent moon overhead, only that long curved beach of empty and deserted shore retained the complete record, to be revealed someday, perhaps, when a later science shall learn to develop the photographs that nature takes incessantly upon her secret plates. For Erickson's rough suit of tweed went out in ribbons across the air. His figure somehow turned dark, like stripes of tide-sucked seaweed. Something enveloped and overcame him, half shrouding him from view. He stood for one instant upright, his hair wild in the moonshine, towering with arms again outstretched, then bent forward, turning, drew out most curiously sideways, uttering a singing sound of tumbling waters. The next instant, curving over like a falling wave, he swept along the glistening surface of the sands and was gone. In fluid form, wave-like, his being slipped away into the being of the sea. A violent tumult convulsed the surface of the tide near in, but at once, with these amazing speed, passed careening away into a deeper water far out. To a singular death as to a wedding, Erickson had gone, singing well content. May God, who holds the sea and all its powers in the hollow of his mighty hand, take them both into himself. Norden was on his knees praying fervently. The body was never recovered, and the most curious thing of all was that the interior of the cabin, where they found Sinbad shaking with terror when they at length returned, was splashed and sprayed, almost soaked with salt water. Up into the bigger dunes beside the bungalow and far beyond the reach of normal tides lay too a great streak and furrow as of a large invading wave, caking the dry sand. 100 tufts of the coarse grass tusks had been torn away. The high tide that night, drawn by the Easter full moon, was known to have been exceptional, for it fairly flooded Poole Harbor, flushing all the coves and bays towards the mouth of the Frome, and the natives up at Arn Bay and Winch always declared that the noise of the sea was heard far inland, even up to the 9 boroughs of the Purbeck Hills, triumphantly singing. So that was The Sea Fit by Algernon Blackwood. I had never heard of this story. It was suggested by someone because I was trying to find this other story. It's not the story I was looking for, but it's a good story. Does this take place in Wales? I'm wondering. Let me ask this then. The Sea Fit by Algernon. It might not know actually, but some of those names sound like Wales. Blackwood. Take place in Wales. It's obviously Great Britain. No. Okay, where does it take place? There's no textual. characters with English and well, no, but so the AI is saying it doesn't take place in Wales, but it kind of seems like it. Like some of these names seem Welsh. I don't know. It's a very good story. I was really impressed. I really like that. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's not always easy to get into this. Look, I'm not complaining. I do my best to get into these stories, but this one's really good. I read The Willows a few weeks ago, and I did The Wendigo, but I feel like this was better, to tell you the truth. I guess everybody likes different stories. This really just was poetic, and it just flowed. The Willows and The Wendigo, I've heard them, I've read them. No, I did hear The Wendigo, but I'm like, hold on, let me check something, because maybe it's Algernon Blackwood. Hold on. Where the hell is that list? Because, I don't know, it's like I'll think a story's done and maybe it's not. I have like a whole bunch of stories lined up for you guys. I was like doing whatever you call like SEO and this and that, but so I'll do the cards in a second. So did you guys like that? What do you guys want me to read next? Now here, remember though, especially if you're new to the channel. So the rules are I only do Welsh, Irish, Brittany, okay, but I don't do American stuff. I know I'm American, but I don't care. I don't want to read American stories. They're usually like Gothic ghost stories or like ambience, or maybe like some type of like uncanny or folk tales, but I don't do, what do you call it? I do not do, I'm trying to find this list. Hold on a second to see if this, I could have swore I saw it, but I didn't see it when I was looking at the thing. What am I saying? Yeah, so I only read like British, Irish, but I will do like French, especially like if it's from Brittany, because that's kind of like seems to be the cluster I like to do. Okay, I have done some, like Edith Wharton is American, yes, but it's not quite the same. She's like kind of considered like one of the foremost voices of the Edwardian period for these stories. I recently did The Shadowy Third. I have to still do by M.R. James, The Uncommon Prayer Book, Wailing Well and After Dark in the Plainfields, but I've done all the other stories. I've done a lot. I've done like all the major ones. They're all like, if you guys go like with the oldest, they're all there. They're also on my other channel, Vanilla Sun Cherries. I have some of the different, hold on, oh here it is, hold on. I finally like find it like the end of the frickin'. I'm just trying to see, cause I could have swore that I saw the Wendigo, but I don't see it. I'm like, what the hell? Blackwood, so. No. Somebody did the Wendigo. I remember like listening to it. Let me pull it up. Let me see who the hell. Because I know somebody did the Wendigo, and I like remember, but I can't find it. Hold on, the Wendigo. I'm just looking real quick because I could have sworn. Maybe okay. So, anyways, I always pull cards at the end, and I usually do like my Gus Patrick deck, but since we're doing this different, so normally like I have the headboard at the back of me, and you guys can see the candles. So look, I did have candles. I'm not like cheating, but I want to like sit differently, because I don't know, just always sitting in that same spot. It's getting boring. Not boring, but it's like, come on. I don't have the table set up because I don't like to sit on it, and the cat likes to sit with me and just whatever. So this is what works. So let me shuffle the cards. Now, and maybe this will actually be easier too to show you guys the cards afterwards. I'm going to do a bit of both. I'm going to do a physical deck and then my Gus Patrick deck. I have to pull cards from my Gus Patrick deck. If I do not, I'm telling you, I don't know how to explain it. I just feel like I go through like some kind of withdrawal. Like I just love this deck. I love the energy of it. Maybe it's Gus Patrick's energy. I don't know. I have to pull from this deck every time I do a reading. I just don't feel complete if I don't. So, anyways, it's not like a full reading, but I'm just curious to see what the energy is. There's kind of like some things that show up, and it's like, yeah, whatever. So, anyways, what's all going on with all of you? This was very good. Now, I liked how he talks about with the pagan, and the pagan, that like with the, at the end, like joining the deity in union, that definitely is like a theme. I feel like, because Algernon Blackwood was an influence on Lovecraft, and I've got several Lovecraft stories lined up to do Lovecraft was influenced, he said, by Lord Dunsany, Algernon Blackwood, and M.R. James. You can definitely see M.R. James's influence with rats. So M.R. James did rats, and then Lovecraft did rats in the walls. So that right there, like, kind of echoes. There were some other stories though too that they all did. I think Lord Dunsany maybe is more his fantasy things or what influenced Lovecraft from like what little research I've done. I haven't done a ton of research in this, and I never say I'm like a scholarly analysis. I just kind of like at the end of these like talk about what are 7 of Swords upright. What does that mean? That's like someone who doesn't feel good enough or something. Knight of Swords. Okay. Interesting. 8 of Wands upright. Okay. Interesting. 8 of Wands upright is like fast moving energy. It could be a message. Okay, we have to do this, Patrick. Okay, so this is my so this is his name. Servant of Patrick. This means son. This means his name was Benog. This guy lived in Cumbria. So actually it's perfect for the channel too. He was a Cumbrian lord, and I think its estate was like near Penrith. Okay, so now that's interesting. This just came up over there too. There's something going on with that. Every time, like if a card shows up twice, there's always something. 4 of Pentacles, we always see you. That's like hanging on to things. The Fool upright, that's new. The World. So this is like something coming to fruition, or like a cycle of something. Oh, and the Sun. Okay, so because this is like these are the what they call the major arcana. That's like brightness. 7 of Wands. This is someone holding the ground on something. But then 10 of Spears. So it's like so holding the ground. So 7 of Wands. It's a Celtic theme deck, by the way. So Spears is Wands, Swords is Swords, obviously. Stones is Pentacles, and then for Cups they use Cauldrons, because there's supposedly stories that the Celts used skulls as drinking cups. I'm like, oh my god, can you imagine? I don't know. I think I would feel like a little weird doing that. But the 10 of Wands is like holding onto a burden. It's like, yeah, it's like, so the 7 of Swords is like holding your ground, and the 10 of Wands is like something's a burden you're carrying for too long. I'll have to like sit with these. This is very interesting spread. This is like new cards. There's like always like certain cards that show up, and it's like, So anyways, I've got I always wanted to do like the ghost narrations like this. I've never done live storytelling, obviously, but well, not in this lifetime. I think I did in past lifetimes, but definitely like around like I feel like I could see myself sitting around a medieval fireplace or like in a medieval hall telling stories. But so I kind of like I started. So if you like have looked at Ghost Patrick's last, that's like the yes that channel is a love altar shrine to Ghost Patrick Matt Benog. Yes, it is. If it looks like that, it is. That's intentional. That's exactly what it is. I know it's silly to say that, but that's exactly what it is. Because that, I had that channel named something else, but then I decided I wanted to like have something dedicated to Ghost Patrick. Because like I saw his name and I like just knew like I need to find out more about that person. It was like there's something going on here. And I started doing research and this and that, and I designed my deck, and here we are. And it's like there's something. There's some kind of energy or whatever you want to call it. There's something. So anyways, I had done like 3 bouts of research now, and I will do a video about it. I had Claude give me like a summary, because I have 20 pages of notes. And I'm like, if I sit there and read 20 pages of notes, I'm going to be like, sleeping. You guys are probably going to like just click off and like curse me out and like put pins and voodoo dolls in me or something. You'd be like mad at me, like, that woman, 20 pages, come on. I mean, God, that is a lot. So I kind of had to give me like a summary of the notes. I found, it's so weird though. It's kind of like as I do more research, it's like, first of all, at first I couldn't even get like any birthday, death date. And so I thought he was born 1136 or 1138. And then died 1183 definitely. Because I think it's called the Wetherall Priory. Or something, the Wetherall something. I think it's the Wetherall Priory. Because when I started my research, there was like a footnote about him. That's how I started. Like, I think I found that, and then that mentioned a record in the pipe rolls, which is like the financial records of the monarch. And so, I think they said something like, I mean, this Wetherall pipe, the Wetherall Priory footnote, or whatever it's called. Hold on, let me ask Claude what that thing was called. Hold on. What was that Wetherall thing called? We found the footnote. It said something like that, Gospatric's estate, because there's two different spellings. There's one thing called Catterley. It's like Caiderleigh. And sometimes it sometimes looks like it's one estate, but then when you actually research his Gospatric, like in the Cumberland pipe rolls, what I found was Carleton, so it's spelled Carlaton, or also Carleton, but also I did a search of Karlaton because I think it was like in Latin, and just to cover everything. But this Wetherall pipe roll said something like, that Henry II was a monarch at the time, and that Gospatric paid in the year 1157 to 58 50 marks of silver for the land at Carleton, Carlaton, right? So that was kind of like the first thing I found, and then I found something like that the estate escaped to the crown by September 29th, 1184, I think. So he had died obviously they call September 29th Michaelmas. It's supposed to be like the Feast of St. Michael's. That was, for whatever reason, that was the day they started the pipe roll, and then it would go for like till the next year. So the reason I'm just telling you about that is just that Gospatric's death was definitely before that date. We can verify that. But then after other research, it was like, he seems like he died earlier. And he has a son named Thomas that took over when he died. Now, it seems like he died maybe around 1179. There was something about a duel. And there was something about some siege with a castle or something like that in Scotland. I gotta do more looking at whatever. Okay, here's this. Okay, yeah. So, the Register of the Wetherall Priory, the 1897 edition by J.E. Prescott, basically the footnote said, in the pipe rolls for 1158, Carleton appears as being in the hands of Gospatric, son of Mapanoch. And it's spelled M-A-P-B-N-N-O-C, not B-E-N-N-O-G. So sometimes it can be B-E-N-N-O-C or B-E-N-N-O-G. Who pays 1 silver mark for it? In 1186 it appears, 1186 it went back further, it was earlier than that. I don't know why it says that. Oh, okay, well I guess the footnotes that mentions 1186, but we started buying stuff from like 1183 and 1184. But it seems like he died in 1179, because there was something about that the son Thomas took over, and there was some guy that wanted to fight a duel with him. They were pissed off at him about something that happened with this castle or whatever. Like I said, I have to do a little more of this. I gotta flesh this out. This is not a really good script they gave me here. The thing, though, is he lived in 12th century Cumberland, the north of England, kind of like on the border with Scott, just below Hadrian's Wall. No, Penrith is not right just below Hadrian's Wall. I thought there's like a bit of a driving distance. No, Penrith is not on Hadrian's Wall. There's like an hour drive, right? No, because like there's like Long Meg and all that stuff. This is the thing with AI. You gotta be like, it's like Dodo-birdish. Penrith is well north of Hadrian's Wall. Not what? No, it's not north of it. It's south of it. No, it's south of it, Dodo-bird. Oh my God. Hadrian's Wall is up north by Butte Castle. Oh my God. I've never been there, and I know this more. I remember I had these like people that didn't know where Cornwall was and where Wales was, and I was like, it's your country. They were like British, and they were like, I don't know. I'm like, I've not been to certain places in the United States either, but I know California's in the south west, and you know what I'm saying? Like, I was just like, okay. Oh my God. Listen what this thing's saying. Oh gosh, you're right. Hadrian's Wall runs roughly through Carlisle across to Newcastle and Penrith is south of that line. I had it completely backwards. Bewcastle's up well beyond the wall in the north. Is Bewcastle really up north of the wall? Oh my god, I don't trust this thing now. Hold on, let me ask the other AI. Because I think Claude got into the sherry last night. Hold on. Let me ask Copilot, because Copilot seems to at least... is Bewcastle north or south of Hadrian's Wall? Because I always had the impression that Hadrian's Wall was like way up north, much further north. Oh, apparently, okay, Bewcastle is north of Hadrian's Wall. Well, I mean, because if... alright. For some reason, I thought that Bewcastle and all those were farther south of the Hadrian's Wall. Okay. Hadrian's Wall runs west. Yeah, we know it's east-west across northern England. Bewcastle lies several miles north of the wall, in the high lonely country between the wall and the Scottish border. It was actually the site of a Roman outpost called Fanum Cocidi. Wait a minute, so where the hell, hold on, where was Cocidius worshipped then? There's this pre-Roman deity named Cocidius that was definitely confirmed to be like a deity in Cumbria that was venerated. I don't know what the worship or venerated, which would be the right word. Where was Cocidius worshipped? Oh god, I can't talk. Where was Cocidius worshipped? I thought it was like worshipped around Bewcastle, it says. Across the northern frontier of Roman Britain, especially around Hadrian's Wall and to Cumbria and Northumberland. I actually made a oracle deck about him too. Probably could pull some cards on that, but I haven't, like I said, I always use Ghost Patrick every day. Like every time I do a reading, anything I have a question about, I always. And it seems to be a very accurate deck. Hadrian's Wall corridor, numerous dedications and carvings appear along the wall. Okay, for some reason I thought the wall was farther north. I know there's a wall in Scotland too. I forgot what the hell they called it. Not the Caledonia Wall. There was like another wall the Romans tried to go up to Scotland and into Scotland, but the people did not accept them, and they just kept fighting with them, and I think they just said, you know, this is not worth the aggravation. So according to this, Cocidius was worshipped around what's called the Hadrian's Wall corridor. Numerous dedications and carvings appear along the wall. Cumbria, several altars and inscriptions come from forts such as Bird, Oswald, and Bewcastle, Northumberland. That's why I thought, though, that for some reason I always thought Bewcastle was south of the wall. Okay, whatever. Northumberland, shrines and carvings appear at sites like Yardhope near Hollystone and around Chester's Fort. There's some other deities too. I'll have to look into and do a bit of research. I know the most about Cocidius. He's associated with the color red. There's I think they call it red ochre. It's spelled O-C-H-R-E. I might not be pronouncing it right, but it was like red ochre or ochre or whatever I guess we would say. And I had this dream one time that I was dreaming about Cocidius, and I guess he's supposed to be like a hunter and a watcher, and he's also associated. Well, in my dream, he was associated with Longmeg. It's a stone circle in Cumbria, and there's no archaeological evidence per se, if you want to say that Cocidius was technically there's no archaeological evidence you want to call it, but this AI was telling me, I was talking to Copilot, is one of my AIs I use, and it said that there is a mythic connection between Longmeg and Cocidius, and that Longmeg is made out of sandstone, I believe, red sandstone, and Cocidius is associated with the color red. So, interesting. So anyways, what else? I guess, like I say, I'm not doing like an actual podcast. I mean, if I ever did call the same thing, I'd probably call it A Touch of the Gothic Whimsy, but I would spell it Wimsey. I don't know, maybe eventually I'll do that. I don't really want to have the pressure though of doing that, because I want to just be able to just do what I want when I want, I guess a little bit. I don't like pressure. I don't like too much structure, I guess, to tell you the truth. I'm very independent. I like to just organize my time myself. I don't want to be like, oh, I have to do this. That's a little bit, I don't have an official upload schedule. I sort of started to, but it just was I actually did more videos than that, so I would just upload them. That's why you see there's like, I think, well, mind you though, there's 300 videos on the channel, but a lot of that might be shorts promoting the other videos, and then there's anthologies, so I'm not sure how many stories I've actually done. But it has gotten to a point of, I'm not complaining, but it's like, these things will be like, oh, you should do that. I'll ask them what are stories I should do next, and they give me a list. And it's like, I've done all those. I've done those. I did that. I did John Sherrington's wedding. I did The Bus Conductor. I forget what else. There's like a whole bunch of them that are like kind of considered classics of the genre. And but what really drives me crazy is how the AIs, I guess, they're trained off the internet, or whoever trained these things didn't know Jack Diddley squat. I'm saying that instead of saying jack shit. I don't know if we're not supposed to like swear on here, so I don't know if I can even get away with saying jack shit, but hold on, can we say the word jack shit on YouTube? Sorry if we can't. Can we say the word jack shit? I don't know. Do you guys even know if anyone British is watching on YouTube? It just means like, it's a swear word for like, jack shit. It's a light profanity. It's like nothing basically. It's okay, you can say light profanity. So allow in the first 7 seconds, and well, no, we're not doing hate speech or any of that stuff. So anyways, God, what was I saying? The AI, the way they're trained, whoever trained these things did not know this genre. And I actually did, you'll say, oh, well, what? No, I actually tried to get a job last year training AI. I never passed their tests. I guess I'm not the best test taker. That's one thing. I didn't pass their tests. And then, because they had like jobs you could work from home like 29 hours a week. Okay, and I know it's not a lot of money. It was like maybe $20 an hour, but hey, that's better than nothing. And I tried, but I just kept getting rejected like for that. And I tried to do like transcription. And so I read like 4 ghost stories. 4 of my favorites. I don't want to say those are my only favorites, because I like a lot of the stories in the genre. I just love this genre. I've lived this genre like whatever, meaning Victorian Edwardian stories. I have lived and breathed these stories for at least the past 8-9 years maybe. And also British history. I know like a lot about that. I just, for some reason, it's just, how can I explain it? It's like, I hate this expression, but it's like, it nourishes my soul. It maybe sounds stupid, but I just love British history, and I just come alive. And nobody else, though, you know, that's partially why I do YouTube too, because whoever like watches these, I hope you guys like history, and I hope you like tutors and all that. I do have a tutor channel called the Pomegranate Manor now, because that's kind of like if I'm doing like the Tudor witchy Cumbrian Tudor witchy stuff. Everything is always like Cumberland or Wales, except for Cumbria Wales aesthetic. Except for Bale Rose Manor, which is kind of French Rococo, but that even has it merged in a bit. But because one time we were, me and my AI and I were like trying to like get like the right aesthetic for all this, and it was trying to, if you try to mix Cumbrian and Welsh and, you know, heather, moors, mist, stone circles, all those things like that are slate, all that stuff that's associated with like Cumbria, Wales, with French Rococo, it does not look good. It looks weird. At least I didn't like it. Maybe other people like it, but I was like, no, this looks stupid. And then it was putting like purple heather in like the Hall of Springs. I was like, or the Hall of Mirrors at Versailles. I was like, no, just forget it. So I just made it like 2 different channels. So that's how I came up with Swan Barkwood Manor with my 4 Welsh decks. And then, because I made 13 so far. Then I used to work on a hotline. So that, I took that off. I quit that. So I set up a store for that, and then Pomegranate Manor just kind of was like a place to put some other, I made like, I forget how many, it wasn't that many on the one hand, but it was maybe like 10 videos that were like different ancient archetypes, and I didn't really want to have them on YouTube. They're not really fit my brand, but I was like, well, Pomegranate Manor is kind of more dark Tudor witchy, maybe I could put them there. Because it was actually going to be like a Lilith Dark Feminine store, but then I was like, screw it, the Tudors, I gotta have the Tudors. My life is incomplete without Henry VIII. And Richard III. It really is. Oh my God. Richard III. Oh God. If we had a time machine. I miss Richard III a lot. It's not as bad now. I've been busy, so I haven't been focused on it. But like, I wrote a screenplay about him. I wrote a story. Is my book on there? I'm not sure if it's on Audible. They took off a bunch of stuff. I did ask them to take off some stuff, but I think they took off some more than I wanted them to. Because I put on Pomegranate Manor the other day, a cleaned up version of my historical romance, because it's very spicy. And then I also did this Richard III one called Belong. Let me see if it's on here, because they took a lot off, but I didn't ask them to take that off. Do you ever like publish something and then afterwards you're like, oh shoot, I shouldn't have published that? You're like, well, why didn't you think about that beforehand then? I don't see it. Maybe they did take it off. Seems like they took off a lot. More than I intended them to. But whatever, it's fine. I'm not gonna like get nothing with them about it. I don't it's not worth like, because they had too many stories on the floor and they went like, it was hard to get them to take them off, so I just don't want to go to war with Amazon. So this is Ruby. Come here. Come. This is my cat. So this is Ruby. She actually, if you guys look at the old version of the judge's house, she photobombs the beginning. Look, isn't she cute? Say hi. She's 10 years old. I got her. Yeah, I got her in July of 2016, so I've had her 10 years. She had a sister named Sapphire. I got the two of them together, and basically, Sapphire died after a year and a half, unfortunately. I don't even know what was wrong with her. She just stopped eating and she was just like sitting there very sick. Took her to a vet clinic. They said she was fine, but then a couple days later she just like had trouble breathing. And then we like rushed her to a overnight vet, but she had to be put down. And that was it, because she was dying and she was really suffering. So I mean, the vet euthanized her. I didn't like having to do that. I don't do that unless it's like really necessary. But unfortunately, so that was like September 2018, I think. Yeah, that was September 2018. So she died then, and then I've had Ruby, and then I got Lulu in March of 2024. So I've had Lulu for 2 years, and then this one 10 years. But this one is like, if I put her down, she'll say pet me, and then if I put her down, she's like pick me up, and if I hold her like this, she's like meow. So I just am like, yeah, whatever. She doesn't like the dog. She doesn't. So that's why if you hear her hissing, she just doesn't like the dog. The dog does not bother her or do anything to her. They're just I don't know. Sometimes they touch noses, so who knows? Who knows? So anyways, I'm babbling on way too much. But if you guys have any comments, nice comments though, only please. No rudeness. But I'm not really like into like big conversations either in comments, to be honest. So yeah, I do these videos. I want to know what you guys like and want me to do, what stories. But again, it needs to be public domain. So like there's one story I want to read, but I can't. It's really good. It's called The Entrance by this guy, Gerald Duvall, I think. But it's from the 1970s, so it's not in public domain. I can't do it. Well, maybe unless if I got like permission from the estate, but I probably have to be like a bigger channel for that. And I want to do the Crown Derby play and the Burge, the Sweeper, but it seems like one of them comes available with copyright in the United States, meaning. If you're in another country, it might be different. But in the United States, it supposedly comes available January 2027. So this coming January, I'll be able to do one of them. Maybe the Sweeper by Burge, but the Crown Derby play, the Crown Derby play just seems to be off limits. Well, you know what? I'll just even tell you like what it is I like about it. I have to watch this cat too. She will try to go out to the candles. So I don't know if you guys will like listen to it. There's like a lot of people who've done it on YouTube. It's a really good story. I really encourage you to listen to it. It's the Crown Derby play. I think it's by Marjorie Bowen. So anyways, this woman she's into China, like not the country, like the dishes, the dinnerware. And she had bought a dinner set of like the I don't know what you guys call it. We call it like China. Hold on, let me ask it. Is it? I think I have like a lot of British people listening. Hold on a second. But what do the British call? Hold on. Call what we in America call China dishes. Crockery or China in Britain? Okay, you guys do call it China or crockery, but the nuance matters. America say China dishes. The British often say crockery, China, or porcelain, depending on context. And then it gives me like every okay. All right. All right. So it's maybe like what you guys would call. So she gets like this fancy dinner set of dishes, and there was one plate missing. And it's a very fancy set of china. If you know anything about China, the Crown Derby is like one of the. I'm not sure if the royal family have it. Hold on. Does the royal family of England have the Crown Derby? Crown Derby collection. Well, anyway, so the point is, it's a very high status collection, and this woman is missing one plate in the story, and then somebody at this house where she had bought the set, they said, oh, she might have it. So I guess apparently she goes over to visit. There's like an old lady alone on Christmas Day. So she goes there, and when she answers the door, like somebody answers the door and goes, it's my house. And I just want to narrate that story and do that line, it's my house. I mean, there's like lines like that, and then A View from the Hill by M.R. James. And I actually did do A View from the Hill. It's on, if you go, like, if you're on a desktop, there's like a little magnifying glass that you put in View from Hell. It's on, I have it, like, I leave the stories individually and anthologies. You really, like, if you've done the stories individually, don't take them off. Leave them on the channel, because people would sometimes just want to listen to just that story. They don't always want anthologies. I understand when people do anthologies because it increases watch time, yes, but also leave out the other stories. That's more watch time. And sometimes people just want one story, not a whole anthology. But anyways, so in A View from a Hill, there's a line where this guy is being forcibly taken from his house. And someone, the neighbor, had looked out the window and saw the guy like coming down the stairs like with his arms at his side. And he was like, are you all right? Whatever the guy's name was. He's like, are you all right? And he hears a voice, but doesn't see anybody. He hears his voice that says, you best put your head in and mind your own business. Like, there was that line, and then what was the other one? And then the other one was The Five-Fingered Beast by F.W. Harvey. I've done that one too. This bird, Peter, scratch poor Peter, scratch Peter. And I love also like the clock. There's a story I can't find. I haven't been able to find it. Supposedly, Copilot thinks it's published in Worldwide Magazine between 1905 and 1908. And I did try to start looking for it the other day, but it just, I don't know. I guess there's like this website I have to go to look. But I was like doing so much other stuff, and I was doing research, and I was like doing these videos and just whatever. And it was just like, oh, I just, there's only so many hours in a day. But I do need to at some point. Maybe I'll even do it tonight. Because, like, especially, like, when it's, like, before, like, 2 or 3, depending. I don't know. I go to sleep at different times. I don't, like, necessarily go to bed same time every day. Depends on my energy level and whatever. But I do try. Sometimes I go to bed by 3, sometimes I don't. Depends. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But anyways, I have to look it up. But there's this story I've been trying to find that I can't find. I read it I could have swore I read it in an Amazon anthology. I've gone back through everything I ever bought, read off of like the Kindle Unlimited. I cannot find it, but there are books that were on Amazon that like I either deleted like an idiot. There's this one book, Strange Tales or something like that. I forget what the hell it's called. It was something like that, and it's full car stories. I mean, and somehow it got removed or deleted off my account, and now it's not available. But I want that book, so I'm like, it's not for sale anymore. But if I had bought it, it would still be in my library. Because even if a book is taken off Amazon, if you bought it, then I believe it's supposed to stay in your library. Well, supposedly, but they may change that. So anyways, this story, it's not this one, meaning the Seafit, it's definitely not the story. But this was a good story by Algernon Blackwood, I have to say that. It's very good. I'm very impressed. I love his writing. It just flows, and his descriptions are just perfect. So anyways, the story I'm trying to find, and it's not that story either where it's not like a castle or a grand fancy house. I don't remember who wrote it. I thought it was a man narrating it, and it was like they were talking about somebody that at that point was deceased, and they're telling their story, this person. And so basically that this guy wanted to go stay on somebody's estate. They had a haunted cabin or haunted shack type thing. And it wasn't like a fancy house. It was just like a place that like hunters would stop over like overnight. And I guess you could cook in it, but it was very crude. But it had like a bunch of windows looking at the sea, and it was like up on a cliff. And this guy, it was on though a remote part of the estate, because this guy feels like he's being watched. And he says he couldn't understand why he felt like he's being watched, because where he was supposed to be a very remote corner of this estate. There's no footpath through there, so it's not like somebody's like walking by or anything. Maybe on the footpath, meaning. And there was like a forest I think you had to go through to get to this cottage or hut, shack, whatever you would want to call it, cabin. Then he's there for like a week. They put all this together from notes he left around the place. And he feels like he's being watched. And he, for example, like at one point he goes outside, and there's like either this rope ladder or a type of rope that you have to take to go down to the cove to go swimming on the beach. Somehow he thinks it's like a tall bird that's watching him. And at one point he's feeling watched, and he hears a mocking laugh. And then when he goes down to go swimming, this thing cuts the rope. And then there was somebody on a boat that saw him and picked him up on because from wherever there's so many distinct things of the story, but I just can't seem to find it. This thingamajig. So there was somebody on like a boat that saw him, and they were like waving at each other and stuff. That guy picks him up, because wherever this little cove was, you couldn't like just walk back up to the thing. You only had that rope or ladder thing to go up and down. The guy picks him up and I guess gives him a ride back to shore, to a part where he could access to go back to the cabin. So he does that, and then I think too, like he sees like the thing looking in through the windows, and then he doesn't end up coming back when he's supposed to, and they go looking for him. And what ends up happening was, I gotta tell you guys about the kushka after this, because this kind of makes me think of that. So then what happens is, when they go and find the cabin, there's flour, Flour, like the baking flour, all over the floor. There's signs of a struggle. There's the guy's footprints. And then there's a bird claw. But the size of this bird claw is as if this thing was like 6 or 7 feet tall. And there was signs of a violent struggle, that the guy like fought, put up a good fight, but eventually the bird killed it. But the bird's not there, it's gone. But they see like the tracks in the flour. I can't find the story though. I want to find it again. It's always like haunted me, because I was like, you know what? I was like, let me find that story and then I'll narrate it on my channel. That would be like really fun. So I know it's not this story, but I just wanted to read this one anyways. But I would like to find this story. I can't seem to find it. Like I say, I went through every anthology that I ever read, because like I went back and looked through my history. I don't know, maybe it was either on Amazon, and I know it was definitely not on Amazon Anthology, because I remember sitting in my old apartment. I used to live in New York City. I was living in my old apartment in New York City, and I know I'm not a New York City girl. At the time, like when I moved there, I really had like no other choice, so I had to go there. But I'm not like I don't like hate small cities, but I'm kind of like more of a country person myself. But anyways, small town or country, so I'm not like Miss New York City. I did live there though. I did live there for a number of years, but it's not my thing. It's just too crowded, too dirty, too whatever. I like old world cities. I don't know, but like I say, I'm a country type. I like kind of quiet. I don't want to have like 10,000 people around. I like to have quiet, not only for the narration, but the only thing is out here in the country. It's like, so this, I'm going to show you guys. So this is my room, right? So that's the window over there, right? And then that's the out to the hallway. So like last week, was it? I think it was last week, either last week or the week before, when I was narrating. either it had been raining, so it stopped raining, but it was like I was gonna narrate, and I was like in a, what do you call it, like a mode, or just like in a, I'm not sure what the hell the word I'm looking for, but basically I was just on a roll, is what I would say, we Americans say, and I was like recording and just having a lot of fun, and then people started mowing their lawns, and like it'll pick up on the microphone, so I was like, oh, should I have to wait till they're done? And then it was like one started mowing their lawn, then they were done, and then the other one had to go do it. Like, I was like, oh my god. And then there's one guy, I think, mows his lawn, or at least that week he was mowing it like every day. I was like thinking, dude, what the hell? You're, because I would hear it, and I was like, well, they don't all normally mow every day. They, they do it like once a week or whatever, but not every freaking day. The grass doesn't grow that fast here. And he's like, I look outside, and he's on like, what do you call it? Like, it's like one of those ones you ride around. I'm like, yeah, it's his toy. That's probably what it is. It's like the first day I got my driver's license, I made like 4 excuses to go out driving, because it was, it was fun. I was like, oh, this is fun to go out driving or whatever. There's an expression, a watch pot doesn't boil. So sometimes, like, if you're waiting for something to happen or whatever, and you're like constantly like looking at the thing, then you'll be like, what do you call it? You'll be like sitting there like going. So if you're always like watching something, it doesn't what's the term? If you're always watching something, it does not. For some reason, like it just doesn't happen. But then when you like stop watching or whatever, like, I don't know. I can't explain it. You either know what I mean or you don't. Oh, I've done all of Ambrose Bierce's stories. Yeah, I did these 3. The middle toe, the right foot. What a weird title, but people like it. That story's very popular. Ooh, oh, please don't do that, dear. She's walking on my cards. The narcissist can't stand me doing anything that doesn't pertain to her. So she's like trying to knock off my tarot deck. And then the dog ate the 4 swords the other day in one of the decks, so I had to order a new deck. Okay, excuse me, please get down. Thank you. But anyways, the middle toe, the right foot's very popular. I did a video about Ambrose Bierce, but I don't know if you guys are going to end up watching it. So basically, Ambrose Bierce, I like did like a thing like, was it he the one who disappeared? I think it was. No, it had to be. Because he also had several other stories. An occurrence at Elk Creek Bridge, middle toe, the right foot, the Moonlit Road. He did some others though. I know I did them. Hold on, let me tell you which one I did. So he disappeared supposedly. And I was like, I'm curious. I wanted to see if I could get to the bottom of it. So what I think happened was they say that, so doing a little research, the AI says that he basically was with a group like in Mexico or something, and he disappeared. And, okay, wait a minute. So there's the ghost story legend. Wait. Did I do that video? An occurrence at Elk Creek Bridge, the damn thing by Ambrose Bierce, the Moonlit Road. And then the middle toe, the right foot, I think. So, okay, I've only done 4. I thought I did 5, but I guess I did 4. So basically, what I think happened was that he was with this group, and he was in like a very like lawless part of Mexico. Somebody with the group he was with got an idea in their mind that he was involved with their girlfriend, but he was not. But it was one of those situations where sometimes somebody gets an idea in their head about you, and whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter. They just have got their mind made up, and no matter what you say or do, they just think what they're going to think. And like I'm telling, especially if it's something negative. So basically, this what happened was, from what I deduced, basically that this guy thought that he was involved with this man's woman, and he executed him. And because that seems to be like what, at least, I mean, okay, I can't prove this, but that's what it seems like. So someone thought he was involved with their girlfriend, and he wasn't though. This person was like very jealous, and I'm not sure if they like did something to the girlfriend too, but it was just like crazy. I was like, oh my god. Well, no, Camus was not happy. He picked what was an exit point, but I don't want to like give people ideas about that. There's this thing called exit points. Like if you're not happy, you can leave. But like I said, I don't want people to do that. So, but no, Camus was not happy. Don't kid yourself. I was like, were you happy? He's like, F no. No, he was not. And you know what? You don't have to live a miserable life. People have choices. We choose. So, people can't like whatever. Anyways, I'm not going to get on the topic. So 3 cards. Lady Dudley wants to say something too. So let me just pull 3 cards from Lady Dudley. So I was telling you guys about the Alaskan legend of Kushtakas, and then I will jump off and get ready for the next story. So basically, in Alaska, they have this legend. It's half man, half otter. It's called a Kushtaka, and supposedly these things can shapeshift. They can take on like the voice of someone you know, and the likeness even. There were some stories of, like, for example, somebody was walking and they saw someone that looked like their friend, and so they thought that their friend was in the park, and they called out their name, and this person who they thought was their friend ran off into the woods to leave this person off the path. And so the person called their friend and said, hey, on their cell phone, was like, hey, why did you run off on me? I was calling you. I was trying to catch up with you. And then the person's like, I'm at the grocery store. I'm not at the park. So the person was spooked and freaked out, so they just left. And then like another time, somebody was at like a park too, and their friend and they were like either doing like some raking leaves and like cleaning up, like volunteers, and the friend had gotten away from them, and they couldn't find their friend, and so they heard like somebody using the friend's voice to call them from the woods to lure them in, but then they saw their friend like up further ahead, so they realized it wasn't their friend calling them from the woods. They think it might have been this thing. So it's these things that there's like an old Native American legend too that supposedly, I think it was like in the 1890s that this happened, or 1880s, that somebody, either a Native American had, or whatever, Native North American, I mean, because, well, Alaska is part of the United States now, but the point is, I don't like to use the word Indian, Native North American had some type of crystals that were in this area, and so someone said, where'd you get those? And then the guy told him the directions, but I guess he told him that these Kushtakas like kind of protect those things, and so if you go there, a lot of the people don't come back, and they think that like these Kushtakas attack them, and then they become part of the group, and people like when people would like go trying to find this valley where these crystals were, these half otter, half men things were like very smelly and gross, and like had like all sorts of sores on their bodies, and would like chase them and stuff. I was like, that really freaked me out. That was like a folklore legend. Well, you know what? It's not a folklore. Well, I don't know if you would consider a folklore movie, but Jeepers Creepers. It takes place rural. No, I guess I don't know if that would be considered folklore or not, but it's a movie like basically this teenagers like disappeared, and it's a movie. It came out like 2002, I think, but it's like basically this creepy thing is like driving this van around and attacks people on these rural roads. And I remember like and I guess it's attracted to your fear. When I saw that movie, I was so scared it was 2001. I was so scared I didn't sleep for like 2 days. It was that on the one hand though, if a movie scares me that much, or a book or something scares me that much and spooks me that much, it's like, I definitely do believe there's something supernatural. I've had enough weird experiences. Let's see. 5 of Swords is reversed, so that's like some type of conflict. The Moon reversed, that's fog clearing. King of Pentacles reversed. Somebody is not feeling confident. Interesting. So, we have those. I told you about the Kushtaka. I love this story. It's not the one I was looking for, though. I can't find the story with the bird with the flower. I don't know. If it sounds familiar to you, then give me a suggestion you think it could be. I am going to do more Brittany stories, too. I did do the Charlatan. That's on Last of the Welsh Hills if you guys want, like, Breton stories. And I also did Lanville from Marie de France. I love Marie de France so much. And I've done the Alba Anatola Bras. I did. See, there they have to go. They just can't resist. They just cannot. Like, it's like their toys. I think, like, this guy loves his toys. Like, his yard equipment is his toys. It's like, I mean, I'm not going to, like, go say anything. What am I going to do? I don't want to like get into things with our neighbors, and also like what am I gonna do? Be like, oh my god, I gotta narrate. You can't like, go do your yard work. Probably tell me to go do something else. Like something I cannot repeat on here. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's okay. So anyways, put your requests in the comments. It does need to be public domain, and it needs to be, well, Victorian or Edwardian. If you do know like stories from the Tudor times, tell me about them. I don't really like. Okay, I know about the Crogland vampire, but I've already covered that anyways. I've covered that on several channels now. I think that's on Cumbria last, or it's on one of my stories, and then it's on Ghost Patrick's last, I think, and then it's also on this story. This is going on Gothic Ghost Stories. Oh God, I need to go because I need to like. I want to do more stories. I definitely want to do more tonight. I've been missing this. It's been too long. It's maybe been a week, but I don't know what it is. If I don't narrate for like a few days, I miss it. I just love, and then especially now it's starting to get dark with the candles. It's gonna be nice. The lighting's always like nice. And this way, actually, you guys, I think you can see my face more because when I'm sitting facing the other way, then the candles the way they are, like right here. Because if I'm like this, you don't really see me, or maybe you do, but I think you'll see me better this way. You at least see more of me because the candlelight at least is hitting. I don't put on the electric light for this. I do try to just genuinely be by candlelight because it's reading ghost stories by candlelight and pulling tarot at the end, just because that's my thing. And I will always be on camera for these stories. I will not use a static image, and I'm not judging or putting anything against anybody who does that. Not at all. I think a lot of people do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just saying for me personally, I want to be on camera. I want to be as if I'm like a live storyteller. And I think I mentioned that. Oh, did you guys listen to the Haunted Baronet yet? I'll say the. So in the Haunted Baronet, that actually takes place in Cumbria, and there's they're all at the Georgian Crown, and I say or the Rosen Crown. That the joke of that is, one time I was just sitting here and like I'll get like not flashes, but just like a nudge or something, like a little hint of something to do something, and I was like, go look up the Rosen Crown in Cumbria, in the UK. And I was like, what? Not meaning that I heard something. I don't actually hear voices. That's not what I mean. But I'll just that's kind of like if you're like into like all this stuff, especially like tarot and whatever, and like opening yourself up for like communication. A lot of the time, messages, quote unquote, will come is that you'll just get like something, and it's usually very quiet, but it'll be like, do this, do that. And that's actually why at the end of the Mahler-Sting Boggle video, why I said, okay, I hope you're happy I did your video, because it was like, it just kept saying Mahler-Sting Boggle, Mahler-Sting Boggle, and I was like, okay, I'll do your video. I was like, Mahler-Sting Boggle. I was like, fine, just shut you up, I'll do your damn video. So, but anyways, this thing was like, look up the Rosen Crown in Ulverston. It's in Ulverston, Ulverston. So I was like, oh, this is crazy. And it didn't say Ulverston though. It just said, look up Rosen Crown in Cumbria. I was like, okay. Okay, fine, I'll bite. I was like, this is probably just BS. There is a place. Let me pull it up. I'll show you guys. This was so crazy. I was like, oh my God, there is this place. For some reason, it supposedly has some type of significance, but it won't tell me anything more than that. So I'm like, okay, whatever. But for some reason, like just because I was like, if you want to see like meditating or doing like cards or whatever, like here, look. So this is the place right here. Okay, it's right here. This is it. So does the picture let you see? This is the place. Isn't this interesting? So basically, okay, come on. I can't stand it when like they have these little things. This is it. This is this place. This place is real, and look at it's kind of almost Tudorish. I think it's too. I think it is from the Tudor times. There was like, I can't find it, but it was something about what year it was from. It was like from the, it's like from Tudor times, anyways. Is the point. So it was funny. So it's like, okay, what's the significance of this place? I don't know. Maybe eventually I'll find out. But it's just so funny that I heard of this place, like that way. That's sometimes like how things like I'll pick things up, like something just either like reading something, you just get like a flash of intuition about something, like Then that's what happened with Patrick MacBanog's name. I saw the name, and I was like, it just something was like, yo, you need to look into this, and I was like, okay, here we are. here we are. We have a tarot deck. Done some research. There's a few videos on here. Ghost Patrick's, no. I mean, they're on Ghost Patrick's last. But there's 2 videos of research I did in the past. I found a few of his sons. Thomas, and then I'm not sure how you say it, Waldusius or something like that. Waldius, something like that. But Thomas was like the main one from the research. And then Ghost Patrick was making like endowments of like churches and things. He's actually much wealthier than I thought he was from the research I did over the weekend. And then, because it was like something about he would endow like a church or like a this and a that. They did something with this. I gotta look into that thing with Scotland or whatever. But it just was so interesting. I was like, I knew there was more. And there probably is even more to learn. Right now I have like 20 pages of notes, but I'm not going to just sit there and read 20 pages of notes. It'll make me and everybody else's eyes glaze over. But I do love British history. I can like talk about it for hours. I never tired talking about Henry VIII, Anne Boleyn, Hever Castle, all that stuff. Oh, by the way, the disembodied laugh at Hever Castle is the Father Thomas. And George's Father Thomas. I think he just maybe like went crazy afterwards. But I was like, there's a couple of people that work there that have Patreon, and they were talking about it, some of the ghost stories. And I guess they said there's this disembodied laugh, and one time they heard the laugh, and then they told somebody else about it, and that person turned white that worked there, so I guess they know this. And then another person one time was in a part where there was no like public people around. It was like they had locked the door, and they went into like an office to work because they were like they worked there and stuff. Something opened the door, but like it didn't show itself. It just, I guess, just opened the door and came in. And that was just too much for them. I don't know. I don't know how I would react if that happened to me. I'd probably be a little bit like, whoa, but I'd probably be like, okay, you know what? It probably, you know what it is? I've had a lot of weird experiences. If something doesn't feel dangerous, I just kind of don't care. Just ignore it. But I've not really had any dangerous experiences though either. So I don't know. I'm just kind of like, okay, whatever. These things want to like just be around. I don't know. Sometimes they either want to say something, they might need to process something, or sometimes they just, I don't know. You gotta be careful though. Sometimes they might invite you somewhere, and they might want you to join them because they're lonely. So always be careful. Don't just go with whatever. You'll be like, what the hell are you talking about? I was looking into moving to South Carolina. There's this gray man ghost there. I almost felt like he was like inviting me. It was really creepy. But I think if I went there, I was like, I don't know. I think this thing wants company because it's been lonely for a few centuries. And then it was like, I had this dream where like Richard III showed up and he was like, enough. And then the guy like was like, okay. And he like backed off. It was so weird. I definitely have like some type of connection to Richard III. And actually, my birthday is the same as Anne's. Coming up next week. It's today's Thursday, June 4th. It's in 1 week. My birthday's June 11th. Oh my god, I wasn't going to tell you guys that. I probably shouldn't, but whatever. Yeah, my birthday's June 11th. So I'm a Gemini. And it's next Thursday. And I'm not really going to do anything special for it though. Not because I don't think birthdays are special or whatever, but you know, there really isn't like, I don't know, like I don't need like a big party or anything like that or big fancy stuff. And so it just probably just be a nice quiet day. But I probably will narrate for fun because I love doing this. And like a year ago, I didn't even like see myself doing this. I was, like I said, yeah, I narrated 4 stories. They're on Ghost Patrick's last at the end, like if you go to the earliest videos, they are there. They're like not as good quality. They were filmed in my little closet there, which is right here, in my closet. And I'm not filming the closet again though. Sorry. You're just gonna have to think if there's any background echo or whatever. Sorry. I don't really like process the audio. I use the microphone, which is right here on the side. I use that. It's an XLR AT2020, and then I do the video on the phone, and then I just throw them together in CapCut, mute the phone from the audio, meaning the audio from the phone, and then I put like my glitter effects, and then I just export it and upload it to YouTube, and that's it. I'm not really into like doing retakes or outtakes, or if I mess up, I mess up. Yeah, there will be mistakes in my stuff. I never guaranteed like that this is like performance of like an audiobook. That's another thing, because with audiobooks, oh my god. I wish I knew about this AI stuff. It probably would help me spend a lot of like avoid a lot of headaches because I wrote like maybe, I don't know, 10 stories, but like I said, I had to take a lot of them off because they don't fit with like my brand now with the stories that I've got and everything. Swan Barkwood Manor, Vale Rose Manor, the Versailles Candlelit Salon, and then Pomegranate Manor. I think just don't fit with that, so I had to take them off. But Audible has like certain requirements. They're very strict, and yeah, I understand why, but at the same time, it's like YouTube is not strict like that, thank God. So anyways, the 4 stories I did were M.R. James, a vignette. That was his last story he ever wrote. It's about like a childhood experience that, whether it's true or not, it's not 100%, easy to know, but it's a story that like is from like from like childhood point of view of like something creepy that comes out of the woods, and he like was looking in this gate and he like sees this eye looking back at him. It's a good story though. It's cute. It's only about 10 minutes. And then I love Was It an Illusion by Amelia B. Edwards. I love that story. And Number 90 by B.M. Croker, that is about a skeptic who doesn't believe in haunted houses. And I think it does take place in London. I thought it was in Charleston, but maybe Charleston's a part of London. Because from listening to the other stuff, and they mentioned this place called the Bowery, Bowery, that's in New York City, but I guess maybe London has it too, because it seems like it does take place in London. I can't really tell you the truth, because I've like been like, okay, where the hell does the story take place? For some reason I thought it was in New York, but then it was like, no, it's London, or no, then it was like, they mentioned Charleston. And I was like, okay, but it didn't, Charleston, South Carolina, by the way, doesn't get as cold as is in the story. So it's obviously it is like London or New York. But it seems like London is colder than New York even. From what I've seen, like, okay, I haven't been to London, true. But from watching like YouTube and UK YouTubers and stuff, like in October, it'll be like 55 degrees and the way they're dressed and like the temperature, 55 degrees Fahrenheit, I mean. It will seem like October, like it's definitely colder there than say in New York City in October. It's a little bit warmer. And then here, oh my God, forget it. Like where I'm in North Carolina, I'm outside of Raleigh. Now here they say Raleigh, but I say it Raleigh. It's named for Sir Walter Raleigh, Elizabeth's friend. And it's very hot here. It's like, I think today was 90. Yeah, today was like 90 degrees Fahrenheit. But that's normal. That's normal. Like, so I was like, how am I in? That's another thing, because like I remember one time I was like with the candles, I had too many candles, it was just too hot. I was like, oh my God. It can get up to 100 here. But maybe I'm just more used to it now. It's definitely warmer than New York is. I'm from upstate New York. I lived in upstate New York for a long time, then I lived for a little bit New England, Massachusetts. Never lived in Vermont, but I did visit a lot. Where I used to live, Albany, New York, it's very close to Vermont and Massachusetts, so you can like go like 45 minutes. You can go 45 minutes to this beautiful place called Stockbridge in Williamstown. Wonderful. And I'm not sure. No, maybe the College of William and Mary is in Virginia. I think it's named after like the same monarch. Meaning, the William and Mary, the ones from 1688, when they take over after James II leaves the throne. What? No, wait, was that them, William and Mary? I think it's them. So anyways, there's a college, I think college, I mean like university, not college like high school, like university. And it's in Virginia, and then there is, so anyways, this Williamstown is named for them. And what else? There was something else, but I forget what it was. But anyways, if I remember. I don't know. And by the way, Richard III did not, at least I don't think that he murdered his nephews, and that is like a big, I don't know, that just drives me up the wall. When people say he did, there's no proof, first of all. Yes, I'm a Ricardian. Yes, I am a Yorkist. And I remember like one time when I was, what was her name? Philippa Gregory? No, Philippa, who's the one with the Richard III Society? Is that Philippa Lang? God, I'm forgetting their names now. There's a Philippa, I'm not sure if it's Philippa Lang. There's a woman with the Richard III Society. But then there's a British author, I think Philippa Gregory, and she had like series about the Tudors and the War of the Roses, and I was like reading those, and I got more and more interested in the time period, and I was like, oh, I want to. These are historical fiction. I want to know what the real history was. So I started doing research and whatever, and I remember like White Rose of York was always coming to mind. Oh, because I think they did the story about Elizabeth. God, what was her name? The one who married Edward V. Elizabeth. I forget her last name now. Woodville. Elizabeth Woodville. And they, she was a silver queen, this and that. So anyways, I kept hearing White Rose of York, Yorkshire and everything. And I was like, what the hell is this? So anyways, that was White Rose of York is definitely with Richard III. So I was like, but, we don't have to hate the Tudors. We don't have to hate them. We don't have to, even though Richard III does die at Bosworth. August 22nd, 1485. Yes, that happened, but we don't have to it's not that I did hate them ever, but I think for a long time I was like a sore point, but I don't know. And Henry VIII, I've got like a love-hate thing with him. Sometimes I just would feel like really upset or whatever, but I don't know. You talk about Richard III. Edward, the son, was, without going into any detail, I'm just saying he was conceived at Sheriff Hutton, but born at Middleham. And there's definitely, because I remember when I looked at Sheriff Hutton, I felt like this energy of, I was like, oh, that's where they conceived the son. And then, apparently though, I think it's a wedding venue though too, so maybe there's also, they subconsciously even tapped into that energy or something. I think sometimes people just pick up frequencies. They don't always know. Because is it Richard Felix? Is that his name? I think is it Richard Felix? He's on YouTube. He's into ghost hunting and stuff. And he was on Most Haunted with his sister Yvette. Because I think his name was Richard Felix. So anyways, they talked about, there was some place, there was some story about a window they would say about something. And it turned out he didn't even know it, but apparently whatever he was saying was true. He found that out, and he talked about that on the channel. I was like, oh, that's really cool. So he's like, I didn't know about that, but so sometimes people pick up things. So maybe people are picking up the vibration love. Okay, I'm yak. I want to get on to the next videos, the next stories. So if you have any requests for stories, put them in the comments, and I will see you guys very soon in the next video.